I'm Sagatov with Century 21 Redwood. I'm back here with,
Thomas.Elwood, Day One Mortgage.
and today, or the next question that we have is, what are the pluses and minuses of buying real estate today? Tom.
Well, some of the pluses that are out there are it's a little more advantageous for buyers. They can have more contingencies. They can get an inspection of their
What?
home, right? um, interest rates are rising. If interest rates continue to climb, which is a distinct possibility, then they're locking in a rate today. If they do lock in that rate and interest rates drop, they can refinance. If they continue to go up, then buyers' purchasing power continues to erode. And those are the big positives.
Yeah, no, we can't predict the future. So, what are the positives of buying, or we'll talk about buying today? Is that one is that there's less competition out there. Yes, there's less inventory. The other element is if you are clear on what you're looking for, that the opportunity, if you need to be open to the opportunity that maybe your perfect house is going to come on the market. And if your perfect house comes on the market and you're sitting on the sidelines and you say, oh, I don't want to spend another $100 a month, and then you call me up 6 months later and go, I wish I'd bought that house, there's no going back. The other element is that we can breathe now when we're looking for real estate. We don't need to be rushing around. We can take our time. We can look at houses. We can many times go back and look at them a second time. Besides driving by going, oh, it's sold to somebody else, the frenzy. Well, we can have substance conversations with our mortgage broker about the best way to approach the financing aspect. We can get a home inspection, which was unheard of back even in June, uh, and we are also able to start building wealth, because real estate is one of the pillars of our financial goals, and so there's a lot of positives about buying today. What do you think about? I know there's been talk about.
Well, I want to stop you there.
All right.
There's positives, but there's some negatives too.
All right.
Why don't you address those?
What are the negatives? Well, the negatives are there's less inventory, so you may not get the house that you want. So there's always a positive. There's always a here's the thing. There's night and day. There's never just night. There's never just day. There's always. So if you're clear on what you want to create, one of the things that I think is great right now is if prices have kind of stabilized a little bit. And let's say you find the house and it's not the perfect house. Now is an opportunity with different financial vehicles to buy that house and to create the house that you want. And I'll go into a video later about how do we transform and create value, and how do we create the home that we want, and consequently value. I think the key is how do we create the home that we want. That's a future thing. The other negative is we're stuck against this interest rate, and we're not stuck, but we're playing this interest rate game. The other negative is that there's less inventory, and it's going to take a lot longer, maybe, to find that perfect home.
So, in the Great Recession, home prices dropped 10, 15%.
Correct.
In this area, I mean, it was a little insulated because you have government employment and government contracting. How long after that Great Recession began had home prices recovered here?
Well, that's a great question. Because jobs, it was job driven. And according to Dr. Fuller, George Mason, job driven, Northern Virginia bounced back very quickly. Arlington bounced back within 6 months. Prices, as far as real estate prices. Yeah. Fairfax County was probably, I don't remember the details, but it was less than a year for pricing to get back to where they were before the Great Recession drop. I think the other thing to remember at that time is that was driven by subprime lending, and a lot of people were underwater with housing. So there was, all of a sudden, there was a flood of housing on the market. Conversely, today, we're not seeing that because the mortgage requirements have changed, and people that maybe want to sell, there aren't as many people, there aren't as many foreclosures, and there aren't as many people underwater, at least locally, that we're seeing, if we look at a percentage basis on that. But then, there's always this thing about, gee, interest rates. I mean, I know I bought my first house, it was 8 or 9%. It was a shocker. But I remember during the great 70s, 80s recession, things are kind of crazy. What's your take on that?
So I'll give you an example. My father purchased a home, his first home, in the early 1980s. He bought a home right outside New York City for $40,000.
Wow.
He had a 12.5% interest rate. He could have sat there and said, I'm not going to do anything. Interest rates in the 70s were in the 6s, 7s.
Yep.
He could have said, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait for better rates. And he would have waited probably about a decade, and he never would have gotten that house for $40,000. And that house today worth a lot more than $40,000. It's worth a lot more than almost any other investment he ever made.
Right. No, I agree. That's a great story. I think the other element in here is we have to put that also into perspective, is that $40,000 home back in the early 80s is equivalent to what do you think today? I mean, we're just doing this off the cuff here, but it depends on where you are in the country. But let's take Arlington County. I would say that that house is probably worth about $700,000 to $900,000.
And that's probably what that is up in New Jersey as well.
Yeah. So I mean, just to kind of put it in perspective, and back then, I'm sure salaries were not anywhere near what they are today. So we just historically we need to think about, history repeats itself, but I think part of it is that's why you want to go talk to a professional. That's why you want to talk to a financial, not only to a mortgage guy, but to your financial person, and to really get a plan for what we're going to do, because life is unpredictable, and there's a lot of opportunities, and the only thing we can focus in on, at least this is my experience, is today. We can't focus on what happened yesterday. We don't know what the future is. So given them what we do today, how do we create what we want to create today?
In times like these, when everything's doing great, all boats rise and everyone's successful, regardless of how smart they were about going about it. When you have times like these and everyone's panicking, if to quote Warren Buffett, that's when it's time to look. That's when it's time to shop.
Yeah, that's great. So I think this is a great conversation. I think one of the next video that Tom and I will do is what about how do we invest in real estate? Let's talk about the basics of return on investment, or look at cap rates and the different ways that you analyze buying property, and just to give a little bit of background. So do you have any parting thoughts on this?
No, that's my favorite subject.
And I'd be honest with you, although I've developed a lot of properties, I've learned a lot from Tom at these last conversations. So if you have any comments about this video, please leave it below. Feel free to contact us, subscribe. Our contact information will be at the end of the video, and hope we catch you on the backside.
Take care.
Bye now.